My name is Ponnapa. I am a visual artist and landscape architect. I started working with ACDC in 2019. At that time, they have a pilot program of what they call a residence lab, which they pair artists, like local artists, together with local residents in Chinatown. The inspiration of the design of the mural come from a lot of things. I did 2 workshops with ACDC youth about the noodles that they eat at home, and we talk about their memory about noodles with their family. So everyone knows that Chinatown has been through gentrification, and when you think about it or you read the news about it, it's more like you look at it from a whole, like from afar, and it's almost like to me as a landscape architect, sometimes we can think about these in terms of urban design or economics or land use, and it's very conceptual to think about or to make decisions whether what can be in there or what is good or bad for the area.
My name is Cynthia Yi. I am presently a writer of Chinatown historical stories. I was born after World War II, so I grew up in a community of Taiwanese immigrants in Boston's Chinatown. Significant on Hudson Street. It's not so good when you're a teenager, but it was good when you're a little kid. You see this parade of fathers going down the street, right down Hudson Street, crossing Neal into the commercial end around 1 to 2 o'clock every day. And you would hear the sound of sewing machines. All the mothers were sewing. And then you would hear the sound of mothers hanging out of these windows, calling their children to lunch or dinner. So it was really a neighborhood in the sense of a neighborhood in that people were neighborly, helping each other out. And that's when they decided to knock it all down and build a ramp to the Southeast Expressway. Now, why would you think it's okay to evict people from their homes to build a ramp to a highway so other people from the South Shore can get home faster? That to me is an act of violence. So it was a very loving, wonderful community destroyed by, I guess it's the Mass Turnpike Authority and the Boston Redevelopment Authority. I wasn't clear on that as a child. But all I know is they destroyed my community. So that's my house. This was my house. Oh my God, I've never looked in the hallway. Look at that. Now they tell me this building is worth $2 million. $2 million. This was the slums, right? They put a price on your building. It's the same building with the same mice. Okay? I bet the mice are still there. Life sort of happens, you know. I started writing story. No, what happened was the Chinese Historical Society of New England said, could you write a story about Hudson Street? And for our newsletter. I said, okay. So I wrote it. I started writing, and my friend helped me set up the website. I just kept adding to it, and then people started reading it, all kinds of people I don't even know, and they write to me and tell me how much they love it. It reminds them of this, it reminds them of that. My story is about one girl growing up in one street. I'm surprised has gathered the success that it has in that they're used by universities and artists as a resource.
My name is Alison Chu. I was their associate producer for the Boston Chinatown musical. The project started in late 2019 with a 2-year-long fellowship established between Company One Theater and Powell Art Center, that they decided that they wanted to develop a musical surrounding the narrative of Boston Chinatown. They decided that there are going to be a lot of community storytelling involved. They wanted to make a project that's about Boston Chinatown and the people who live here and the history of here. So we conducted a lot of interviews via Zoom. We were able to identify like artists, restaurant owners, Boston Chinatown community leaders, organization founders, teachers, retired teachers, mothers. So with all of those materials, we're able to sort of extract some of the stories and make that into a small musical.
Brick, we came together, we raised it from the ground. Brick by brick, we built our Chinatown.
There's a writer that is like really famous in Boston Asian American community. Her name is Cynthia E. I think one of the things that really struck me was she wanted to be able to provide a sense of like solidarity and like affirmative strength for younger folks, for folks in Boston Chinatown, in Boston, around the country, to know their stories are validated, to know their stories are worth listening into.
Art is a universal language that speaks to all people, including the empowered privileged, who don't want to give up their power and privilege, of course. My writing has to do with centering our own narrative and not making us supporting characters in the white narrative. So we get a lot of youth that come to Chinatown, join these organizations, volunteer, and in the process they find their richest selves, and they donate their richest self to the community and to the world. And I think it's the youth that is going to be the savior of Chinatown.
Boston Chinatown, it felt more and more like home for me, but at the same time, I feel like I started to feel a sense of anger for it. I was able to hear how so many generations of people fought for the little spot that they live in, fought for their businesses, fought for the row houses. I think anger is sometimes like when I started to walk around Chinatown, I feel mad that because I wanted to protect it more, because I wanted to become like a bodyguard for Chinatown.
Chinatown is really not just a physical space. I guess it's a home for the heart. Chinatown is. You know, every once in a while, you don't want to go home and live with your parents, but you know, every once in a while you got to touch bases with them, right? You got to go home, eat that home cooking that your mother makes, you know, and then you leave. And you leave stronger, right, each time. You can go out and slay dragons after you get refueled. And this is her mural, the big dragon. A collaborative project between Thai artist and landscape architect Ponnapa.
Once I was there painting and then see the people, which is like the life or the things that happening there every day, it's totally different from these conceptual idea. And this is like a real thing that like, this is the place where people meet their friends, eat their food, their kids go to the park nearby. This is the place where they hang out. So I think around the second week that I was painting, the title just come up like, oh, this is where these people belong.